Bonjour, Kitamagi and Ireland and Discuss, and welcome to this production of the My Math Network. Today's episode, Chapter 12, Lesson 3, Classify Triangles. The essential question for Chapter 12 is, how does geometry help me solve problems in everyday life? And before I get started, let's look at what the homework will look like so you have an idea of what we're engaging in as we listen to the lesson. And you can see here that we're going to look at congruent, which means the same, and usually by the same side or same angle measure. In this case, it's definitely sides. We're going to try to decide whether it is isosceles, which means at least two sides are congruent, equilateral, where all sides are congruent, or scalene, where none of the sides are congruent. We have a vocabulary check, which will heavily go off of pages 9, 15, and 16. We're going to look at the attributes, which are the characteristics of a figure on some of these. And then we have a final kind of test practice style question. This part is not in your book. And what is the same and what is different about triangles? Well, it can vary. Sometimes the sides will be different lengths. Sometimes the angles will be different lengths. Sometimes you'll have two or three sides that are all the same, or two or three angles that are the same. Right, we have three triangles shown here. Again, still not in your book. And you notice that in the little corner here, it has a box that shows that this is a 90-degree angle. So these two lines are perpendicular. And if there is a right angle, that makes it a right triangle. Over here, if a right angle would go up like this is greater than 90 degrees. So that is an obtuse triangle. So definitely different. And over here, none of them are at least 90. So this would be an acute triangle. Remember, obtuse has one angle bigger than 90. Right triangles have one right angle, and acute have three less than 90-degree angles. All of the measures of angles here would total 180 degrees. You could check that. It will. So we know that if one's 90, the other two can only equal up to 90. If you have a 90 degree over here, a 90 degree over here, it's not going to connect, and therefore it won't be a triangle. But what we can say is the same about them. They all have 1, 2, 3 angles and 1, 2, and 3 sides. Here they're going to try to quiz us here. Side lengths of 4, 4, and 4. So you notice that they're all the exact same length. So this one would be equilateral. So it starts with equal, which means the same. Lateral is lines. It's probably going to be acute as well due to the angle measurement. So it'll probably be, if it's going to be all sides congruent, likely the angles are going to be pretty close too. Two acute angles and one obtuse. That means it's isosceles. Should put that on your spelling test. Side lengths of 3, 3, and 5. Sorry, I got ahead of myself here, friends. One obtuse angle, that means it's an obtuse triangle. This one over here would be isosceles. Sorry about that error. Next year we'll make this episode better. And it's isosceles because it has two side lengths that are congruent. One right angle and two acute is going to be a right triangle. Side lengths of 6, 7, and 9 are going to be scalene because there are none the same. And 3 acute will be an acute triangle. So you notice that we're going off of 2 different groupings. In your book, you have isosceles, equilateral, and scalene for if there's 2 sides congruent, 3 sides, or none. And then we also have acute for 3 acute angles, right triangle for 1 right angle, and obtuse for 1 obtuse angle. So we're looking at 2 different areas. And quite frequently, if you have all the measures, you can actually pick from both lists. I'm going to go ahead and clear that. You can see it right there. All right, let's go ahead and get into the book. This will be on page 915. The expectation is that you will fill this in as we go, and that allows you to have an artifact when you complete the assignment. So the Hammond family traveled from Columbus, Ohio. I can see why you'd want to go from there to Dallas, Texas. So that's this stretch right here. Then to Atlanta, which is over here, and then back home. The distance of each flight is shown on the map. Find the number of congruent sides. So we look at it here. This is 573, 924, 729. And so we're missing the 1 because we have the 924 right there, the 573, and the 729. How many sides of the triangle are congruent? Remember, congruent means the same. And if you look at it, you have 900 something, 500 something, 700 something. 0 are the same. So go ahead and write that in. By the way, if you're at home and I say I'm about to clear the screen, that usually buys you 1 or 2 seconds in order to pause the video if you need more time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. You can see that we're good. And if you look at the bottom here on page 915, if it has 0 congruent, no sides are congruent, that is a scalene triangle. So go ahead and write in scalene, and then you can turn to the top of the next page. All right, I'm going to go move forward. Example, knees should now on the top of 916. And you can see this triangle here. And we have some new questions. How many of the angles are acute? And remember, acute means less than 90. All 3 of them are going to be less than 90 degrees. How many are obtuse, which means greater than 90? 0. And there are no right angles. So we have 3, 0, and 0. Go ahead and write that in. And now we're going to be judging it in a moment by the key concept list right there. So I'm going to go ahead and clear the screen. And you can see right here, if it has 3 acute angles, it is acute triangle. So go ahead and write that in. So now you should be able to differentiate between acute, right, and obtuse, and isosceles, equilateral, and scalene. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move forward. Here's one for you to practice. Classify the triangle based on its sides. First, you're going to count the congruent sides, and that will allow you to decide what kind of triangle it is, particularly using the criteria on 915. Although in theory, you might be able to eyeball it and get both. So go ahead and pause the video, unpause the video when you're ready. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. It is an isosceles triangle because it has two congruent sides. This side is 2 centimeters. This side is 2 centimeters. Look at number 2. Classify the triangle based on its angles. So now we're going to probably be looking at acute, right, and obtuse. Go ahead, pause the video and unpause when you're ready. Welcome back. It's an acute triangle. This one's pretty close to 90, but not quite. And you could use a protractor when necessary to answer these kind of questions, particularly if you have paper. Describe an isosceles right triangle. And what I would say it is a 190-degree angle. And isosceles means 2 sides are congruent. So the 2 sides probably coming off the middle are going to be the same length out of that angle. So you might, but you notice that it is possible to have isosceles and right in the same, or isosceles and acute, and others. All right, some practice ones for you. Do number 3 and 4 based on its sides. So that's probably going to aim you towards the data on 915. Go ahead, pause the video and unpause when you're ready. All right, let's see how you did. There were no congruent sides, so that's where you determine the number, and it's a good idea to write them down. 2.9, 2.5, and 1.3. None of them are the same. And if there are no like or congruent angles, that is scalene. Over here, we had 2, 2, and 1.5. Those 2 are the same. And when you have 2 sides the same, that is isosceles. All right, let's look at the angles. So we're going to decide now more based on 916 between acute, right, and obtuse. Go ahead and pause the video. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. You can see that this one is greater than 90, just slightly. So this is obtuse. This one, none of them are at least 90. Also, all 3 are less than. So that makes it acute. Let's bounce ahead. Well, let me show you. This one's a right triangle because it has the right angle. This one is also acute. Now, what I want you to try to do, and this is only possible on your paper, is to draw number 9, an equilateral triangle, and number 10, a right triangle. Go ahead, pause the video and unpause the video when you're ready. Welcome back. Let's see how you did. So equilateral, as long as all the sides are the same length, you're good. And a right triangle, as long as you have 190-degree angle. And you can measure that with a protractor. At this point, we're going to go to the homework. You can use the information on 915 and 916 to help you to answer these questions. If you're using the paper copy, you may turn that in the respective place in the classroom. If you're at home, you should use the Google form. If you have any questions, please reach out to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net. Otherwise, have a mental gizhigad. Minwa, Pamapi.